Hello, everybody. You're reading with Jimmy. This is Jimmy. We're reading William Shakespeare's Hamlet and really having a good time. For those of you who stuck with me and are emailing me, thank you so much. Act 4, Scene 1 and 2. We're closing in. Lots happening. We left off with Claudius giving sealed orders to kill Hamlet once he reaches England. So Claudius, as we know, killed Hamlet's father. And now he realizes Hamlet probably knows, but he's arranged to take Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, take them over to England, and he gave Rosencrantz sealed orders. So when they open it up in England, they kill Hamlet. Act 4, Scene 1, pardon me, a plane in Denmark. Enter Fortinbras. Remember him? He was talked about in the early acts. A captain and soldiers, they're marching. Fortinbras. Go, captain, from me and greet the Danish king and tell him that by his license, Fortinbras craves the conveyance of a promised march over his kingdom. He's asking to cross across Denmark. You know the rendezvous. If that his majesty would aught with us, we would express our duty to his eye and let him know so. In other words, if the king wants to come over, be happy to greet him. Captain, I will do it, my lord. Fortinbras, go softly on. Exit Fortinbras and soldiers. I want you to notice since the last act, the clipness, the rhythm of the scenes has changed. These scenes are sometimes short, and sometimes the scene itself contains various people exiting and entering and re-entering. And there's a reason for that. Because, the third-person narrator is moving the plot along at a brisk pace now. Because things, ladies and gentlemen, are coming to a head. Enter Hamlet, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern, and others. See, there's always others, like here, soldiers marching, others. So this stage is filled with not just the actors who are acting, but with the other actors, right? You see in movies starring and also starring and also starring, right? Hamlet, good sir, whose powers are these? In other words, who's here? The captain, remember the captain came and he's left behind on stage. They are of Norway, sir. Hamlet, how purposed, sir, I pray you? In other words, what are they here for? Captain, against some part of Poland. In other words, they want to cross over because they're going against Poland. Hamlet says, who commands them? The nephew of old Norway, Fortinbras, says the captain. Goes it against the main of Poland, sir, or some frontier? Captain, truly to speak, and with no addition, we go to gain a little patch of ground that hath in no profit but the name. To pay 5 ducats, I would not farm it. Nor will it yield to Norway or the Pole a ranker rate, should it be sold in fee. In other words, they're going to go fight over a patch of ground that's not worth very much. This is very important. Very important. Hamlet says, then why do the Polak never will defend it? And then he's saying, well, the Polish will never defend it. Captain, yes, it's already garrisoned. Hamlet, 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of this straw? This is just imposthume, right? Imposthume is an archaic word for abscess. This is an abscess of much wealth and peace, that inward breaks and shows no cause without why a man dies. I humbly thank you, sir. So Hamlet's questioning the whole fight, right? Captain, God be with you. And he exits, right? He exits. Rosencrantz, will it please you to go, my lord? Hamlet, I'll be with you straight away. Well, go a little before me. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern leave. Remember, they're accompanying Hamlet to England, going to his ship. So all that's left on stage now is Hamlet. And he starts talking. Who's he talking to? Well, he's talking to you, but he's also talking to whoever, right, wants to listen to him. How all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. So he's basically complaining everything seems to be spoiling his revenge. What is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed. A beast, no more. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse looking before and after gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fuss in us unused. In other words, God's given us something to think about, our brains, right? And now, whether it be bestial oblivion or some craven sculpt of thinking too precisely on the event, isn't that what he's doing? A thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and three parts coward. I'm going to repeat that. A thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and three parts coward. In other words, don't think, if you're thinking too much about something, you might be a coward. I do not know. Why yet, I live to say, this thing to do, this thing is to do. I have cause and will and strength and means. In other words, he's got the gumption to do the thing he wants to do, and you know what he wants to do, right? He's got to take revenge. To do it, examples gross as earth exhort me. I see everywhere, they're driving him to do this thing, right? Witness this army of such mass and charge led by a delicate and tender prince, Fortinbras, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed makes mouths at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. In other words, Fortinbras is going forward with his army, right? And he doesn't even know what he's fighting for. And yet I have a purpose. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor is at stake. How stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason in my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and a trick of fame go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot, whereupon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain? From this time forth my thought be bloody, or be nothing worth. And he leaves. So I remember I told you when they're talking about what they're going to be fighting over this quote-unquote patch of land, that's important because Hamlet is basically now comparing himself to Fortinbras and saying Fortinbras is going to fight and 20,000 guys are going to die, and I can't even get my butt going to kill my uncle. That's not, if I were going to sum it up in today's language, but this is beautifully said. That's why I want you to pay attention to the language. This is very, very important. Because the language of Shakespeare, of the third person narrator here, and the people, and Hamlet especially, and these other people who talk, you're going to find language that expresses our inmost thoughts sometimes as this. So he's saying you can't think about things too much. In this other scene right here, 1 part wisdom and 3 parts coward. If you're thinking too much, maybe you're a coward, right? Just remember, when you read this, you're reading 400 years ago, and you're gauging what he says compared to your own thoughts, actions. Remember, why are we reading? To see how other people lead their lives and how to lead our own. So I hope you're taking copious notes. Scene 2. Now we're in a room in a castle. Enter the queen and Horatio. Queen, I will not speak with her. Gentlemen, she's impromptu, indeed, distract. Her mood needs to be pitied, says a gentleman. A gentleman. Saying gentleman? There's a typo here, but that's okay. We don't care about that. Where does this gentleman come from? Well, he's obviously on stage with Horatio, Enter the Queen and Horatio, but there's this gentleman. She's impromptu. Who's she? We don't know yet. But she's distracted, and her mood needs to be pitied. Queen, what would she have? Gentlemen, she speaks much of her father and says she hears there's tricks in the world and hems and beats her heart, spurns enviously at straws, speaks things in doubt that carry but half sense. Her speech is nothing, and yet the unshaped use of it doth move the hearers to collection. In other words, she's talking sometimes in really riddles, or it doesn't make any sense, but you can't help but you're being moved by what she's saying. And they aim at and bunch the words up fit to their own thoughts, which, at her winks and nods and gestures, yield them, indeed, would make one think that there might be thought behind what she's saying, though nothing sure, yet much unhappily. So the gentleman is basically saying, she's basically talking, doesn't make sense, but yet there's something going on here that needs to be pitied. Who is she? We still have to figure that out, although you may have already figured it out. And spurns is to refuse to accept something or someone because you feel that the thing is not worth having. So spurns enviously at straws. She reaches for a straw. You've heard the expression, you're reaching for straws, right? Horatio then says, "'Twere good that she were spoken with, for she may strew dangerous conjectures in ill-breeding minds." You better speak to her because she may strew dangerous conjectures in ill-breeding minds. Queen, okay, let her come in. Exit Horatio. Then the queen says, "To my sick soul, as sin's true nature is, each toy seems prologue to some great amiss." Everything seems like foreshadowing to something really bad happening. So full of artless jealousy is guilt, it spills itself in fearing to be spilt. Remember the rhyming of two words at the end of each speech sometimes, especially at the ends of, if you look back here, forth, worth, right? There's rhyming going on. And I drew a little arrow here. I want you to think about these two lines. So full of artless jealousy is guilt, that it spills itself in fearing to be spilt. Do you ever feel guilty? Have you ever felt guilty and not say anything, right? If you're feeling guilty and you don't say anything, and that's all you think about is whatever you're thinking about that made you feel guilty, and you keep feeling it, that it spills itself in fearing to be spilt, and fearing that you're going to say something about whatever you're feeling guilty about. And people sense that. Usually the term these days is "are you okay?" when they sense something, whether it's guilt or whatever, something you're thinking about, usually people today say, "Are you okay?" And you say, "Yeah, I'm okay." Even though you're not okay. I'm just saying. Re-enter Horatio and Ophelia. Ophelia. So it was Ophelia. The she, all this stuff here was about Ophelia. And now we know, as the audience knows, Ophelia, where is the beauteous majesty of Denmark? Queen says, "How now, Ophelia?" There's a little note here. There is no part of the play more pathetic than this scene. So he talks about this scene, and whoever wrote this, which is Sir Joshua Reynolds. And who is Sir Joshua Reynolds? He was an English painter who specialized in portraits. And having read and studied Hamlet, he thinks there is no more pathetic scene than this. I don't know if that's true. And ladies and gentlemen, you're the ones who have to decide that. What does pathetic mean? Feel pity for, right? And that's what Aristotle told us to feel, pity. One of the emotions we want to feel about these tragic characters is pity. I don't know if it's a sad scene for sure. You feel pity for Ophelia. You're going to feel pity for Ophelia. You should feel pity for Ophelia, right? Now that her father was murdered by Hamlet. But I can think of at least a couple of other scenes that are as equal, if not more pathetic than this. And one of them was early on when Hamlet was hurting and he didn't know yet what he knew, that his uncle killed his father. And his uncle starts reaming him out because he doesn't truly empathize with what Hamlet's feeling, which is the loss of his father and his mother marrying his uncle. If you remember that scene, very potent scene, very sad scene. I pitied Hamlet, and I hope you did too. So the queen says, "How now, Ophelia?" And Ophelia sings. She doesn't just speak. She sings. I'm not going to sing. I'll try a little bit. "How should I love your true love know from another one? By his cockled hat and staff, and his sandal shone." A little one little rhyming going on, right? "Queen, alas, sweet lady, what imports this song?" "Ophelia, say you? Nay, pray you mark, pay attention." Sings. "He is dead and gone, lady, he is dead and gone. At his head a grass-green turf, at his heels a stone." Queen, Ophelia, pray mark. No, pray you mark. Listen. "White his shroud as the mountain snow, and enters the king as she's singing. And the queen says, 'Look here, my lord.' She sings, 'Larded with sweet flowers, which bewept to the grave did go, with true love showers.'" So she keeps singing while the king comes in. The queen says, "Look at this." And what does larded mean? Embellish, with a variety of expression. Larded with sweet flowers. Okay, D-I-L-D, dild. You're going to see it means yield. King, "Oh, how do you, pretty lady?" "Well, God yielded you. They say that the owl was a baker's daughter. Lord, we know what we are, but know not what we may be. God be at your table." She's talking a little strange. Would you agree with that, ladies and gentlemen? Would you agree with that? So there's some notes on here what this means. He's saying that there's a little this is BS. He says the tradition that the Savior, that's Jesus Christ, right, went into the baker's shop and asked for some bread, and that the baker put some dough in the oven to bake for him, capital H, meaning Jesus, and was rebuked by his daughter for doing so. For this wickedness, the daughter was transformed into an owl. You see this here? You see that? Jimmy wrote a note here. That's BS. King James Bible, you can get an edition yourself. Remember, allusions are basically to help us deepen our appreciation for what we're reading. And narrators, whether first or third person, do not just put these in for the hell of it. They're putting them in for a reason. Now, this footnote by this guy who's doing this version of it says they say the owl was a baker's daughter. He says that there's something in here, there's a story, a tradition that says the Savior went into a baker's shop. That may have been an English tradition, that may have been a sidebar tradition, but I assure you it is not in the King James Version of the Bible, which, by the way, would be the versions these people are using, because King Henry VIII, as if you didn't know or did know, he split from the Catholic Church and started, the Church of England, the Anglican Church, right? So that's when he split. There was various reasons why he did that, but he produced his own English Bible. It was in English. It's the first book, English version of the Bible. And that's the one, if you're going to read the Bible in English, you may want to read the King James Version. There is no story about Jesus stopping in at a baker's shop and turning a daughter into an owl. I'm just telling you. So maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Maybe Ophelia is, in fact, a little off. Conceit upon her father. The king says conceit upon her father. What does that mean? It's probably the death of her father is affecting her mind. Ophelia says, pray you, let's have no words of this. But when they ask you what it means, say you this. And then she says, singing. Tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, all in the morning beat time, and I, a maid at your window, to be your Valentine. Then up he rose, and downed his clothes, and duped the chamber door, and let in the maid, that out a maid, never departed more. Would you say that Ophelia's behavior has changed since we met her in the previous acts? Would you say, perhaps, that she's mad? She's certainly acting mad. Now, we know Hamlet isn't mad. Hopefully you concluded that. But he acts mad. He does act mad. Is she acting, or has she really flipped? That's your question now. See, the beauty of Hamlet is like life. Life is complex. Have you figured that out yet, ladies and gentlemen? It's complex, and you never really know the motivations of anyone, sometimes including yourself. Why did I do that? You see? So have you ever asked yourself, why the heck did I do that? Jimmy was eating too many dill pickles the other day. And he told his wife, I think I'm going to throw the dill pickles away. She says, what's wrong with them? I said, I don't know. I just ate too many of them. That gave me heartburn. And I said, and then she says, well, there you go. And I'm asking myself, why did I eat so many pickles? Anyway, so is she acting crazy, or is she crazy? King, pretty Ophelia, indeed, la, without an oath. I'll make an end of it. So she sings again. By gifts and Saint Charity, alack, and 5 for shame. Young men will do it, if they come to it. By cock, they are to blame. Quoth she, before you tumbled me, you promised me to wed. So I would have done by yonder sun, and thou hast not come to my bed. Who do you think he's talking? Who do you think she's talking about? So there are saints, faith, hope, and charity. They're a group of Christian martyred saints who are venerated through their mother, Sophia. So she's saying Saint Charity. I wanted to call your attention to Saint Charity. Okay? And basically here, what she sings, there's a certain ramification in here. Would you agree with that? Promised me to wed. I wonder who promised her to wed. King, how long has she been thus? Ophelia, I hope all will be well. Now, King, when he asked that question, he's not asking that of Ophelia. Would you agree with that? He's asking that of the queen or someone else that's in the room. But Ophelia answers him. I hope all will be well. We must be patient. But I cannot choose but weep to think that they should lay him in the ground cold. My brother shall know of it. And so I thank you for your good counsel. Come, my coach. Good night, ladies. Good night, sweet ladies. Good night. Good night. And she leaves. So here she's talking, she can't, her father's going to be laid in the cold ground. King, follow her close and give her good watch. I pray you, he tells Horatio. King, this is the poison of deep grief, and it springs from her father's death. Gertrude. When sorrows come, they come not in single spies. They don't come all at once, right? They come in whatever. The origin and meaning of this oath are also wrapped up in obscurity. That's a note for 497, which is, what oath was that here? I don't know if that's an oath. He's trying to say he doesn't know where it came from. It's wrapped up in obscurity. You have to decide if that note means anything to you. When sorrows come, they come not in a single thing, but in battalias. Battalias is really large troops. They come a lot. When it rains, you heard that? It pours, right? When it rains, it pours. I'll save that story for the analysis. No, I'll give it to you now. Jimmy was a collector in his early life after graduating college, and he was collecting money in the state of Ohio, and he had called someone. They didn't have phones sometimes, so he would in rural Ohio, they'd have a sheriff. So he called and he did connect with a guy who did have a phone. And I'll never forget this. But when I was, because my job was to collect $5 on the account to keep it current before they lost the money. So that was my job. It was a horrible job, but I learned a lot about human beings and behavior and all that stuff, because that's what I've studied, tried to study my whole life. And I'm always surprised by people. They surprise me. So I called this guy up and I was talking to him. I said, so-and-so from so-and-so, and just trying to call on this account. You've owed money for the last 3 months. And there was this silence. I'm just trying to collect $5, to keep the account current from going to the collectors, which is what they would do. They would just pawn it off and sell it. And some collector would go, try to collect the money. And there was this pause. And then this guy said words I'll never forget. They were embedded in my mind. They were embedded in my diary, my journal. Jimmy, that wasn't the name I was using at the time. Jimmy, because you were allowed to use aliases. Jimmy, when it rains on a man, sometimes it rains really hard. And he had such emotion and pain in his voice, transmitted over. By the way, the phone is a great tool for understanding people, because you can tell a lot from a human voice. And I never forgot that. And so what the king is saying here is that, when sorrows come, they come in battalions. Sometimes when it rains on a man, it really rains a lot. Something to think about. First, her father slain, next your son gone, and he, most violent author of his own just removed, the people muddied, thick and wholesome in their thoughts and whispers, for good Polonius's death. And we have done but greenly in huggermonger, confused the untidy and lacking order, to inter him. So in other words, they haven't, they just buried Polonius because they just found the body. Poor Ophelia. Remember, Claudius is the guy who just sealed orders to have Hamlet killed. Do you understand that? As you're reading this, you have to keep that in mind, that his uncle just ordered his death once he hits the English shore. And he's saying, your son. He's talking to Gertrude. And he hasn't told Gertrude that he ordered Hamlet's death. What a conniver. Anyway, so Ophelia divided from herself and her fair judgment, without the which we are pictures of mere beasts. Last, and as much containing as all of these, her brother in secret has come from France. Remember, we already saw Laertes, right? And he feeds on his wonder, and he keeps himself in the clouds, and he wants not buzzers to infect his ear. He doesn't want rumors with pestilent speeches of his father's death, wherein necessity of matter beggared, will nothing stick our person to arraign in his ear, in ear, and ear. Gertrude, oh my dear Gertrude, this, like a murdering peace in many places, gives me superfluous death. It's killing me, Gertrude. It's killing me. What a faker. Gertrude, this is all killing me. Queen, they hear something. What noise is this? King, where are my Switzers? Let them guard the door. There's something going on. There's commotion going on. Switzers, where's my guards, right? What is the matter? Here comes the gentleman. Gentlemen, save yourself, my lord. The ocean, overpeering of his list, eats not the flats with more impetuous haste than young Laertes. In a righteous head, overbears your officers. Well, here comes Laertes, and he's brought a lot of people with him, and he's come for you. The rabble call him Lord. He's coming for you. The rabble. Who's the rabble? The people. And as the world were now but to begin, Antiquity forgot custom and not known. The ratifiers and props of every word, they cry, choose we Laertes shall be the king. They're going after Laertes because Polonius is dead. They don't know who killed Polonius. And the king has screwed up his funeral, blah, 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 blah. Laertes will be king. Caps, heads, tongues applauded to the clouds. Laertes shall be king. This is a gentleman is telling the king this. Queen, how cheerfully on the false trail they cry. In other words, this is BS, but they're going nuts. Oh, this is counter, you false Danish dogs. Now the queen is, I'm the queen. What are you talking about? The doors are broken. Noise within. A whole lot of commotion. Here comes Laertes, armed. Danes are following. Where is the king? Sir, stand, you all without. So he says, everybody stay out. I'm going after the king. Danes, no, we're coming in. I pray you, give me leave. Okay, we will. They retire without the door, outside the door. So they're not on stage, they're outside the door. Laertes, I thank you. Keep the door. O thou vile king, give me my father. Calmly, good Laertes, says the queen. The drop blood that calm proclaims me bastard. In other words, my father's dead, I'm a bastard. Cries cockle to my father, brands the harlot. Even here, between the chaste unmischief, brow of my true mother. What is the cause, Laertes, says the king, that thy rebellion looks so giant-like? What's going on? Let him go, Gertrude. Let him go, because Gertrude, let him go. Gertrude, conclude, right, by reading carefully, must have been holding Laertes back. Do not fear our person. Let him go. Don't fear. We're not afraid. Our person. He's speaking like a king. There's such divinity doth hedge a king that treasons can but peep to what it would. Acts little of his will. Tell me, Laertes, what thou art thus incensed. Let him go, Gertrude. Speak, man. Where is my father? Says Laertes. Dead. Queen, but not by him. Not by him. Let him demand his fill, says the king. Well, how came he dead? I'll not be juggled with. To hell allegiance, vows to the blackest devil, conscience and grace to the profoundest pit. I dare damnation. To this point I stand, that both the worlds I give no negligence. Let come what comes, only I'm revenged most thoroughly for my father. Laertes wants to know who killed his father, right? King, who shall stay you? My will, not all the world. In other words, who's going to back you up? Not me. And for my means, I'll husband them so well that they will go far with very little. I don't need a lot. Good Laertes, says the king, if you desire to know the certainty of your dear father's death, isn't it written in your revenge that swoopstake you will draw him, both friend and foe, winner and loser? Swoopstake is in an indiscriminate manner. In other words, if you really want to know who killed your father, does it matter if it's a friend or a foe? None but his enemies. Will you know them then? Laertes, to his good friends, thus wide I'll open my arms, and like the kind knife-wielding pelican, repass them with my blood. King, why? Now you speak. Like a good child and a true gentleman, that I am guiltless. I am guiltless of your father's death, and am most sensible in grief for it. It shall be level to your judgment pierce, as day does to your eye within. Let her come in. Laertes, how now? What noise? Here comes Ophelia. So the king brings back his sister. Ophelia, Laertes, heat up dry my brains, tears 7 times salt, burn out the sense and virtue of mine eye. By heaven, thy madness shall be paid by weight, till our scale turn the beam. O Rose of May, Dear maid, kind sister, sweet Ophelia, because he's seeing her really right? Oh heavens, isn't it possible a young man's wit should be as moral as an old man's life? She's obviously acting a little weird. Nature is fine in love, and where it's fine, it sends some precious instance of itself after the thing it loves. Ophelia. They bore him barefaced on the bier. Hey, noni, 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 hey, noni. And in his grave rained many a tear. Farewell, well, my dove. Laertes, hast thou thy wits, and didst persuade revenge? It couldn't move this. In other words, this is what I need. Ophelia, you must sing. Down a down, and you can call him a down a down. Oh, how the wheel becomes it. It is the false steward that stole his master's daughter. Laertes, there's nothing more than matter. This doesn't make sense. Ophelia, there's rosemary, and that's for remembrance. Pray, love, remember that there is pansies, and that's for thoughts. A document in madness. Thoughts and remembrance fitted, says Laertes. This is a document in madness. In other words, she's a little off. Ophelia. And then there's fennel for you and columbines. There's rue for you. And there's some for me. And we may call the herb grace, O Sundays, and you must wear your rue with a difference. There's a lot of notes here, and you can freeze the screen when you're reviewing it if you want to read this stuff. I don't think it's important. Daisy, and I would give up some violets, but they withered all when my father died. They say he made a good end. So she obviously knows her dad's dead, right? She sings, for bonny sweet Robin is all my joy. Laertes, thought and affection, passion, hell itself, she turns to favor and to prettiness. Ophelia singing. And will he not come again? And will he not come again? No, he is dead. Good, go to thy deathbed. He never will come again. His beard was as white as snow, all flaxen with his pole. He is gone, and we cast away moan. God, mercy on his soul. And of all Christian souls, I pray God be with you. And she leaves. Is she acting or is she flipped? I gave you a pause there for you to really think about this, because this, again, remember what Polonius said, there was a method in the madness? There's always method in madness sometimes, and you can see sparks of things that are reality that we know is true. Their father's dead. But then there's this other stuff that comes out of nowhere. Now, I don't think she's pretending. I think she really got hammered by the death of her father in her mind. Laertes, do you see this, O God? King, Laertes, I must commune with your grief. Or you deny me the right, but go but apart and make a choice of whom your wisest friends you will. And they shall hear and judge twixt you and me, if by direct or by collateral hand they find us touched, that we will our kingdom give you. In other words, you're going to find some buddies who are going to tell you the truth. And if you think I had anything to do with this, I'm going to give you my kingdom, our crown, our life. Don't forget who Polonius was. Polonius was the Lord Chancellor, guy very high ranking next to the king, which means his son Laertes was connected through default by being the Lord Chancellor's son. He's connected to that string there. Our crown, our life, and all that we can ours to you in satisfaction. But if not, if you don't make the connection, be you content to lend your patience to us, and we shall jointly labor with your soul to give you due content. In other words, if you realize that I had nothing to do with your father's death, be patient and you and I together will figure this out. Laertes, let this be so. His means of death, his obscure funeral, no trophy, no sword, nor hatchment over his bones, no noble right, nor formal ostentation, cried to be heard, as it were, from heaven to earth, that I must call in question. Nothing. You didn't treat him like a Lord Chancellor, the king. So you shall. And where the offense is let the great axe fall. I pray you, go with me. And they exit. Whoa. Lot to think about. Laertes shows up. He wants to challenge the king for his kingdom. Laertes pauses, talks to the king, sees his sister has gone a little nuts. And now the king says, be patient. I'm going to let you know what really happened. Because the king knows what happened, right? Is the king the cause of this? There's a thing in when you're doing research and when you're doing, let's say you're doing product research and you have a product failure. There's a thing called root cause. And when you have a root cause failure, okay, when you have that type of failure, something will happen and you look for the root cause of the failure. I want you to think about that as we review this. You've been reading with Jimmy. This is Jimmy. Hold on. Okay. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.